Have you ever noticed how some people walk into a room and it feels like the entire atmosphere bends toward them? They don't necessarily speak louder, wear flashier clothes, or even look special at first glance. Yet something about them commands attention. Now, contrast that with the times you have walked into a room. Shoulders slightly hunched, voice a little too soft, feeling like you need permission just to take up space. For years I lived like that. And maybe you have too. Constantly apologizing, not just with words, but with your posture, your hesitation, even your silence. But here's the haunting question. When did you finally stop apologizing for existing? And maybe the deeper question, have you stopped yet? Let me take you back to a story. A college friend of mine, Sam, was the kind of person who could do 10 favors for everyone around him, yet still apologize as if he had failed them. If he shared an opinion in class and someone disagreed, his first reflex was, "Sorry, maybe I'm wrong." If he walked into a cafe and the barista got his order wrong, he would apologize for confusing them. What he didn't realize was that this wasn't politeness, it was a form of erasing himself. And the truth is, so many of us are guilty of this quiet self-erasure. Psychologists call this the imposter voice, the internal narrative that convinces us we're burdens, that our presence is inconvenient unless we're adding value, solving problems, or entertaining others. According to research by Dr. Kristin Neff on self-compassion, people who constantly self-blame or over-apologize are often masking deep insecurity. They believe that if they don't shrink themselves, they risk rejection. Ironically, the shrinking becomes the very thing that makes them invisible. And so we live life half-present, waiting for permission to be whole. But something powerful happens the day you realize that your existence itself doesn't need justification, that your voice, your boundaries, your needs are not crimes. They are evidence that you're alive. That day doesn't arrive with a big fireworks show. It comes in small moments, almost like habits you start building, habits that over time shift you from apologizing for existing to existing without apology. The first habit is deceptively simple, but it changes everything. Stop filling silence with apologies. Imagine this. You bump shoulders with someone on the street. Your instinct is to mutter, "Sorry." But pause. What if you said, "Excuse me," instead? One acknowledges space, the other surrenders it. This is more than wordplay. It's a psychological reframe. Studies in linguistic psychology show that language not only reflects thought, it shapes it. When you habitually use words that put you in a submissive posture, your brain rewires your identity to match. By swapping unnecessary apologies for neutral or assertive phrases, you're not just changing speech, you're teaching your nervous system that you belong here, without guilt. And here's where the suspense builds. Most people think confidence comes from grand gestures, like public speaking or bold career moves. But the truth is, it starts in micro moments, choosing not to apologize for ordering the meal you actually want, not apologizing for asking a question in a meeting, not apologizing for taking up a chair at the table. These tiny acts accumulate, and soon they rewrite the story you tell about yourself. But here's the twist. The moment you start practicing this, you'll feel uncomfortable. You'll worry people will think you're rude, arrogant, or ungrateful. That's the resistance of an old identity clinging to survival. And if you can push through that resistance, if you can stay with the silence instead of stuffing it with apologies, you begin to see how powerful you truly are. And yet, this is only the first step. What comes next is even harder. Not just changing your words, but changing the way you value your presence. Let me tell you about a woman I once met during a workshop on confidence. Her name was Layla. On paper, she had everything going for her. A good job, a supportive family, even friends who admired her. But when she spoke, it was always through half smiles and half sentences, as if she were asking for permission to finish her own thoughts. At one point, she confessed, "I just don't want to take up too much space. People already have enough to deal with." That one line hit me like a thunderclap. Because isn't that what so many of us secretly believe? That we are too much, too needy, too flawed, too inconvenient? And so we shrink. not realizing that in shrinking, we deny others the very gift of knowing us fully. Here's the paradox. The world doesn't respect what you constantly devalue. Self-respect isn't selfish. It's the currency of every relationship you'll ever have. Think about it. If you don't respect your own boundaries, why should anyone else? If you apologize for every opinion you share, how can others trust you to lead? Research from the University of Waterloo shows that people who demonstrate firm but kind self-respect are perceived as more trustworthy, attractive, and competent. Why? Because self-respect signals stability, and stability is magnetic. So how do you build it? One habit at a time. The second habit is this: protect your non-negotiables. These are the lines you will not cross, no matter how much you want approval. For Layla, we practiced one simple non-negotiable. She would no longer agree to weekend work unless it was part of her actual contract. At first, she panicked. What if my boss thinks I'm lazy? What if they replace me? But something fascinating happened. Instead of losing respect, she gained it. Her boss stopped assuming she was always available and started valuing the hours she did give. Her colleagues noticed the shift too. She wasn't apologizing for protecting her time. She was modeling it. Now maybe your non-negotiables look different. It could be saying no to toxic friends who drain you. It could be refusing to explain your dietary choices at every dinner party. It could be choosing to sleep at 10 p.m. no matter what, so your mornings are yours. The point isn't the rule itself. It's the message you send to yourself. My existence has weight and my needs matter. Here's the psychology behind it. According to self-determination theory and behavioral psychology, human beings thrive when they experience autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Every time you honor a non-negotiable, you reinforce autonomy, your ability to direct your life. That's the soil where confidence grows. But let's be honest, this is where many people get stuck. Because the moment you draw lines, people will test them. Friends might say you've changed. Family might guilt trip you. Colleagues might roll their eyes. And this is where the third habit begins to take shape, though we won't reveal it fully yet. The ability to endure discomfort without apologizing for it. Think about it. If every time someone pushes back you fold, then your self-respect is only skin deep. But if you can hold steady, calmly, without over-explaining or over-apologizing, you begin to embody a kind of quiet strength that people can't help but notice. And here's the suspense. What happens when you stop seeking validation for your boundaries? When you no longer need others to approve before you feel legitimate? That's when you begin to cross the threshold into a completely new way of being. It's not just about avoiding apologies, it's about living unapologetically. And in the next section, we'll dive into the third and perhaps most transformative habit. There's a moment in almost every person's journey where the mirror becomes impossible to ignore. Not the physical mirror in your bathroom, but the one life holds up to you through repeated patterns. Relationships that drain you, jobs that undervalue you, friendships where you play the role of the helper, but rarely the helped. For years, I thought the problem was them. The boss who demanded too much. The friend who never listened. The family member who made me feel small. But slowly I realized the harsh truth. The person I'd been apologizing to all along was myself. Let me explain. Every unnecessary sorry, every time I said yes when I wanted to say no, every time I laughed off disrespect, it was me telling me, you don't matter as much. And if you repeat that script enough times, it buries itself in your identity. This is why the third and most transformative habit isn't about what you say to others. It's about what you whisper to yourself when no one's watching. The third habit is this: rewrite your inner dialogue. Here's a story. A young man named Victor grew up in a family where achievement was everything. If he got a 95 on a test, his parents asked, "Why not 100?" If he won second place, they said, "Who beat you?" By the time Victor was an adult, his default self-talk was brutal. If he made a mistake at work, he told himself, "You're pathetic." If he forgot a task, it became, "You can't do anything right." Outwardly, he was polite, often apologizing to co-workers before they even noticed an issue. Inwardly, he lived in a storm of shame. But when Victor began practicing self-compassion exercises, backed by research from Dr. Kristin Neff, something shifted. Instead of instantly shaming himself, he paused and asked, "If a friend made this mistake, what would I say to them?" That simple shift began to soften his inner voice. Over months, his apologies to others decreased, not because he grew arrogant, but because he stopped carrying the weight of constant self-condemnation. You see, the way you speak to yourself sets the tone for how you let the world speak to you. If your inner dialogue is drenched in apology, you'll unconsciously invite others to treat you as if you should apologize. But when your self-talk is rooted in respect, compassion, and strength, you radiate it outward. People feel it, even if they can't articulate why. Now here's the real transformation. When you combine all three habits, stop filling silence with apologies, protect your non-negotiables, and rewrite your inner dialogue, you stop living reactively and start living deliberately. You stop waiting for someone else to validate your worth and begin carrying it within yourself. And ironically, the very moment you stop apologizing for existing is the moment the world starts respecting your existence. But let's end with a challenge. Tonight, when you're alone, ask yourself, when did I start apologizing for existing? Was it as a child when you were told to be quiet? Was it in school when standing out felt dangerous? Was it in adulthood when rejection or heartbreak convinced you to play small? Pinpoint it. Name it. Because once you know when it started, you can decide, today, when it ends. And if you're brave enough, declare it in the comments. This is the day I stop apologizing for existing. Not because you've suddenly solved every insecurity, but because you're choosing to live differently, one habit at a time. So here's my final call to action. Stop apologizing for being here. Start practicing presence, boundaries, and self-respect. And if this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone else who needs the reminder. Because the world doesn't just need you to exist, it needs you to exist unapologetically.